Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We are thrilled to have you here as we dive into the topic that has been become an increasingly vital importance for organization, and that is streamlining workforce and identity. As companies grow and businesses expand, managing identities for processes like onboarding, internal role change, and offboarding can no longer be manually handled. That's where automation comes in. To have a thorough and in-depth discussion on this, we have amongst us our head of products, Bram, to dive into this topic. Bram brings in his deep product experience and real-world examples to have to share with us on this webinar. Feel free to dive in and bring in your questions in the chat as we discuss about the topic of automating joiner, mover, and lever to identity. I'll hand it over to Bram now.
Thank you, Ashita. And thank you very much for joining the call. So I would go over this problem, right? What is the benefit or why automate JML to identity? And in that context, I just also wanted to introduce our company, RoboMQ. So RoboMQ has a product hire to retire. We fall in the category of identity governance and administration product. We are a lightweight IGA, which is focused on a very niche space of employee identity lifecycle management or workforce identity lifecycle management, access provisioning, resource provisioning, compliance, auditing, and reporting capabilities, which I'll dive into detail as we get through the presentation. At the same time, I know it's a short webinar focused on a particular or a specific problem, but I'm going to do a short demo of the product just to give you a feel of what is possible. And after the call, you guys can feel free to reach out if you want to see a deeper dive into the product and have a demo. We have two type of demos. We can do a HR or executive demo, which still focuses on the business process and a higher level view of the things, as well as we have an IT demo, which is a comprehensive demo targeted at sysadmin or the IT operations team, which will own the product and for who the automation of JML to identity makes the business sense as well as the benefit. So without further ado, what I'll do is I'll share my slides and get into a little more detail than just doing the talk. Can you all see my slides? Now we can. Okay, perfect. So the first question that comes is why to automate joiner, mover, and lever to identity? I mean, frankly speaking, for all of you who are here, as well as most organizations, every organization is doing this in one way or the other. This is not something which is brand new that anybody is doing for the first time, but this is something which is being done by organization. Every organization has either they are doing it manually or what they are doing is they are using some kind of automation, scripting, and so on to automate this process. But we are talking about the full end-to-end automation and create value from it. So before getting to the answer of this question, I think we need to look at when the joiner, movers, and lever happens, what is the expectation between HR and IT? So on the left-hand side is what HR sees as, and on the right-hand side is what IT does or is the expectation from IT for the organization. So in case of joiner, new employees hired and is being onboarded. IT is expected to create the identity, put them into the org chart, give them roles and privilege, access to the third-party systems, laptop, workspace, mobile devices, resources, and any kind of assets that are needed. Essentially, the goal is when an employee walks in on the day one, he or she is ready to start work. They are fully empowered, have all the privilege and access, and people know who they are. They show up in the gal, they show up in the org chart. So that's expectation from joiner and a new hire, which gets into two stages or two. It can break down into two stages. One is onboarding when you are getting ready for the employee to be set up for the day one, and the actual day one events. Then we go to the second one, which happen many times in the life of employee or the worker is the mover, promotion, role changes, name or profile changes. And in that case, IT is expected to update the profile, put the org change in place. Somebody moved from sales to marketing. It should show up in the gal. It should show up in the org chart and the email update. Somebody gets married or divorced. They want their email to be updated accordingly. Similarly, when somebody changes roles or their job changes, their privileges and what they can access has to be reassigned. Old privileges has to go away and the new privileges and access has to be given to them. Organization communication is another thing that has to happen. And then support for role transition. So if I move to the next role, maybe somebody else is picking up my last role. How can I help transition that? Which means have the I have the access and resources that I need and then be able to transition out over the next couple of months. Similarly, the lever, which could be resignation, involuntary or sensitive terminations, all of these have to be handled. And this is that because there's a criticality or sensitivity around the data security, data breaches, or the cybersecurity related risk. So the IT is expected to deactivate and terminate account, remove the logged in session, remove the access, licenses, privilege, collect all the assets and resources. I mean, it's just the reversal of the onboarding process. We need to get everything back. And then the critical assets like OneDrive or the mailbox, which has important information from that employee has to be given to somebody so that we can ensure the business continuity as well as security compliance and cyber security risks are there, right? You want to make sure that terminated employee don't walk away with the privilege as well as termination happens timely. And in order to do that, if you don't have automation, somebody sits till 6 o'clock on Friday to make sure the terminated employee's account is disabled and the terminated account is terminated. So these are the expectation from an HR perspective. They want things to be done in a certain way. From the IT perspective, they have to do it in a reliable, without the error, repeatable fashion because it's just not about it's about the experience of the employee and it's also about the security and the compliance risk that organization face, especially in the today's cyber security and the cyber risk environment. So this is other expectation between HR and IT. Now moving on to how it is done today. This is a typical, may not represent everybody, but this is a typical process how things work today. HR will notify IT, maybe Excel tracker is sent, maybe an email or a ticket is created. Somebody who's highly skilled, very busy, has better things to do than creating account, which is a sysadmin, will manually create account. Typically, they will copy somebody's profile, kind of create a bare bone or minimum profile for that new employee. After that, over next 3 to 10 or more days, employee or the manager is going to access certain privileges and requests which employee need to get their job done. So employee comes in and say, okay, I need this or I need so that I can do something. Manager will approve the request. Again, it goes to the sysadmin. The sysadmin will again give the privilege. So it goes into a couple of iteration before the employee is fully set and ready to go. Or they're saying, okay, I have everything now so that I can do my job. So that's how it is done today. Fairly manual, partly automated because I'm not going to say that everybody does it by actual manual. People have PowerShell scripts or some kind of bare bone automation or data sync in place, but often they don't have a single pane of glass automation where everything is done automatically and they don't have to do work. Rather, they just make sure that it is done, which is mainly compliance and reporting and just making sure that if something falls apart, then notifications are sent and somebody can act on it. But in sunny day scenario or for most part, things are done in a zero touch automation. So that's current state. Now, if you do some automation, what is possible? But before I go to that question, I also want to validate what I just showed you in last slide is what we also captured when we did this LinkedIn survey with a couple of IAM identity and governance users on LinkedIn. And we found overwhelmingly 85%, sorry for 85% of the people use service desk or ITSM system to get this process done, which does create some kind of ownership or responsibility, but it is still manual. And then some people use Excel tracker, which is a next big number, or email is also used in some of the organization to notify of the JML so that IT can do account creation and provisioning and what all they need to do. Do you any of you think it's different than what it's shown? Feel free to raise your hand and share your opinion on that. Now, what is the fallout if you don't have the automation? If you don't have the automation, I think one thing is there that this job falls on to people who are busy. They are costly resources and they have to spend a lot of their time to get something done which can easily be automated. And the fallout is when the person walks in on the day one, they don't have a good experience. They're not fully set up. Nobody knows who they are. They may not have access or even the resources like black laptop or workspace ready for them. And they say that the first experience or the first impression that an employee has on the organization and their onboarding, it has a big contributor to their retention. How long they stay with the organization or what is their experience with the organization is strongly reflected from the first day at work, because on the first day they feel sense of acceptance, they feel they are ready to do things, they feel they are welcome versus running around and feeling uncomfortable as to they walked into the organization and they are not productive. So that feeling of uh, can be avoided and you can provide a better experience. Second thing is cost. Putting highly skilled resources to do the job, which is thankless, which is very boring, as well as there's an opportunity cost of these resources and they can do a better job. Last but not the least is delay in timely removal of access, which can create security and data breach risk and the reputation damage that it can create to the organization in today's world. There's a huge cost of which cannot be directly quantified as a cost saving, but if it happens, the impact of it is very high. So these are the things or these are the risks that organizations run if they do not have a JML automation to identity. Now, let's see what can be done or how you can do it with hire to retire. If you use hire to retire a product like this to automate JML to identity, the first thing is HR is the source of the truth. HR will provide the data, or HR system in this case. HR system will provide the data as long as or as soon as HR is able to create the employee profile in the or payroll system, we can get the data from HR system. It could be done through an API or the extract, and we get the JML information as to who's joining, who's leaving, and who's moving. And then you configure the workflow which is tailored to your process, your business needs, because every organization is different as to how they handle the identity management. And from that workflow, the system will create the identity, manage the identity, give the role-based entitlement, birthright or privilege, or group membership, and whichever way you call it. We have a extensive SIM gateway, which has 200 plus third-party access connectors, so you can automatically provision, deprovision, or grant access to these system to the employee based on their role and what they need to do. Then we support integration with ITSM or service desk, which will allow for approvals, workflows, and resource assignment. We also have capability to provide personalized communication, which is in line with JML event, which means when hiring happens, you need to provide some kind of communication versus when the termination happen and so on. We have advanced capabilities of dashboards, scheduled reports, and exports. In addition to just the identity, privilege, and access, we also have deep integration with Microsoft 365, with Office 365, SharePoint, Entra ID, and OneDrive. So we can do things like shared mailboxes. We can do things like OneDrive reassignment when somebody leaves. And then we have an integration with BI, data warehouse, and S3 so that we can not only do the automation of your JML to identity or workforce identity lifecycle management, but we can also provide the data to provide the evidence that you have a process and you follow the process and there's the evidence of it. So it can help you meet some of the HIPAA requirement, NIST requirements, SOC 2 requirement, or ISO 27001 requirement. So this is basically a good view of what all is possible if you do the full automation. Now, with the full automation, I think this slide should be pretty obvious because I stated the problem and what is possible. But in summary, you provide superior first at work to your new hires. The information is synced between HR and IT system, with HR acting as a source of truth. You can have role-based or attribute-based access control and access provisioning. With service desk integration, we can do resource provisioning and workflows, as well as depending upon the ITSM system, we support giving resources from the catalog item and so on, triggering the workflows, creating the incident and so on, and then avoiding security and compliance risk by timely termination, as well as your ability to have a repeatable process which works with zero touch automation and is not error prone. And that way you can ensure that what is expected for termination, what is expected for making sure that employees have need to know basis access can be done. And most of the customers which use hire to retire product or do the JML to identity automation save a significant amount of money and the time. This is a kind of a laundry list when you automate JML with hire to retire for between HR and identity, what you do. And I think I've gone over all of these in some details, but this is a laundry list, and we're going to definitely share this screen so that you see what all is possible. This is not the complete list, but this is a very high level view of what is done when joiners, movers, and leavers are processed through the hire to retire platform. And it takes care of most of the things that most of the organization need to do. At this point of time, I've shown you enough slides. So what I can do is I can do a quick demo. And this demo is gonna not cover everything because I can't show in 5 minutes the whole product, but I can definitely give you a quick view of what is possible or whatever I mentioned on these demos and what capabilities can be achieved to do the full automation. How do we provide them? So I'll switch my screen to the product and I'll take Workday as an example of the product. I know everybody doesn't have Workday, but we support almost 26 HR and ATS systems, and you see all kind of ATS systems and all kind of HR systems, and each one of them is supported. As well as one thing to note is the employee data or the JML information that you get from Workday versus ADP versus Bamboo HR or Paymaster, Paylocity, Paycom, any one of these or success factor is very similar. It's a worker data and it is hiring, termination, change of role, and the information is very similar. We also have a lot of customers who have moved from one platform to another with seamless migration through hire to retire system because you don't have to so that you don't have to change your identity management processes just because you change the HR system, because identity management processes are very similar, independent of the HR system. What you need is the worker data to be pulled from the HR system, whichever it is. So very functionally, very much a functional parity, whichever we use, whichever HR system you use it. I'll pick up a complex example where we are integrating with hybrid AD. Although we support hybrid AD, on-prem AD, we support Entra ID only configuration. And if you're not primarily on the Microsoft space, we also support Okta and the Google Directory. Most of the customers which use Okta also use Microsoft 365, and there are all kind of permutation and combinations which can be applied when Okta exists in along with Microsoft 365, and we can support all of that. So I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to go over all of the whole of the product, but just quick bird's eye view of it. This is the summary of your workflow. So as you build the workflow, whatever you build is shown here. I mean, all kind of rules, business logic, how you assign groups, privileges, and so on. You can find that English summary in there, but we don't have to see this in detail. Rather, we get into how it is done. So that brings us to the identity. This is identity and privilege assignment section of it. So you choose your application HR system, what kind of the identity setup you have, and then you connect to these systems because you need to get the data over the API from Workday so that whenever somebody is hired, change of role happen or termination happen, we can get that information. And then we have the ability to write to your hybrid configuration, in which case we will write to your on-prem directory, we will write to your Entra ID, we'll also talk to Exchange Online and the SharePoint Online. Exchange Online because some of the groups and capabilities are managed by Exchange Online. SharePoint because we need to reassign OneDrive upon termination. So we can do those activities also. Now, once you do that, basically what you do is you get the data over the worker API from the HR system. You choose what information you need to process. Typically, it is a basic PII. Just be aware that we don't need advanced PII. So there's less amount of security exposure that hire to retire will put you to. We need the basic PII, first name, last name to create the identity. We need to know the manager ID so that we can put the person in the right org chart. We need the job specific information, organization code, SAP cost center, title, department, so on, so that we can put you into right privilege, give you right access, and some of the information like hire date, termination date, or last day worked, so that we can process the life cycle. So very basic information, and the identifier of you means the employee, manager, basic PII or job information, so that we can give the access and privilege. Then you have a full iPaaS like capability, so that you can map the HR data, in this case workday data, into your Active Directory and Entra ID. You can do all kind of map, drag and drop, data transformation and mapping. We support user functions which are modeled on Excel, so that you don't have to learn a new language. Our product is fully no code, no programming, no professional service. Everything is built, ready to go out of the box. So you build the profile, you create the profile, you create the basic profile name, you create the common name, you can create the UPN, you can create the email. We support all kind of formats for the email address that you have. We can also support different UPN format than email format. Sometime, login, Windows login, is different than the email address. We support multiple domain names if you have that scenario, and you can map as many number of fields as possible to create your identity profile. Once you have created your identity profile, then we get into how you want to process any of these life cycles for hire and rehire, change of role, termination, and long-term leave. There are all kind of advanced capabilities like shared mailbox, OneDrive assignment, choosing how many days in advance of the start date should the account be created, so that IT gets enough of the window of opportunity to have the laptop ready, access given, and so on. So all of these capabilities are there. And as you see, it's all drop down, check the box, no code. It's a very, very intuitive, simple to use user experience where it is fully guided. You get everything on the screen. You can choose and you can configure the product to mirror the identity management processes that you have within your organization. So, for example, you can choose the termination time. So, if I resign on Friday, 6 p.m., my account will be disabled without somebody having to sit or wait for 6 o'clock to happen. And we also support multiple time zone, which means 6 o'clock in New York versus London versus San Francisco are different, and we're going to honor the employees' local time zone in terms of supporting the termination. We can write back the email address. We can do a lot of things. I mean, I can keep going over and over again and get you bored over this short webinar, but a lot of it is possible through the product. You can manage how the groups are given removed. You can manage what privileges will remain, retain, and so on. Then I'll get into something interesting. This is where how you assign the OU. You have this concept of rules where you can say if the employee's department, title, or any number of attribute meet certain criteria, they can be put into certain groups. And then we also have the order. So you can process these rules or algorithm in certain order. And that way, you make sure that every employee get an OU. We also have this, we support all kind of groups, the groups which are managed by on-prem, groups which are managed by Exchange Online, as well as the groups which are managed by Entra ID. And you can use similar attribute. You can make a choice of a combination of attribute, which will lead to somebody getting a certain security group, distribution list, Microsoft E365 groups. Those 365 groups are pretty powerful because that way you can control access to SharePoint, Teams, and other Microsoft resources. So they are security enabled as well as mail enabled group. They are very powerful. We support them in addition to all 6 or 7 of the groups that exist in the Microsoft ecosystem. And then as I was talking, we have the capability to do lifecycle specific communication. So you can build emails for each of the life cycle or JML changes. The email can be created. You can use the attribute from HR system as well as identity attribute. That is what I meant, that it's personalized. And we have a rich text editor so that you can use a personalized email, maybe can be used to welcome a new employee, laundry list of things to do when somebody joins on the first day, as well as you can send links to acknowledge the receipt of company property, or have somebody sign a DocuSign, or fill a Microsoft form, and so on. I mean, it is left to your creativity and what you want to do. core thing is that you are able to send communication which is personalized, is specific to an employee, and it is tied to the change that is happening in his employee profile in line with the joiner, mover, or leavers. We also have capability to extend the capability of the product by using user function. I'm not going to get into that advanced detail. We have integration with all the major service desk platforms, so you can integrate with these service desk platforms, and in line with the capabilities that they offer, you can create tickets. You can also, like, I can show you what is possible here. For example, with ServiceNow, you can choose which life cycle you want a ticket creation to be triggered and what kind of ticket creation it is. Is it incident record? You can create a record. You can trigger the workflow. You can use the order guide to assign a set of resources and assets, as well as you can use the catalog items to assign the catalog items for the employee. And then you also have across the product, you have the capability to define policy, which means whatever you define, it can be fine-tuned to who the employee is. For certain employees, you want to do certain things. For certain employees, you don't want to do certain other things. So those capabilities are possible. Then, as I was talking, we have 200 plus connect 200 plus connectors available on our SIM gateway. Sorry, let me do discard and continue. Maybe save. Okay, I'll have to delete this. Sorry, guys. Looks like it is not liking me today. Okay, so coming back here. So we have 200 or so access connectors that you can, yes, here it is. So we have these access connectors. These are SIM connectors, and these connect to 200 plus systems. And basically what you can do is, if somebody is hired, you can assign a license or give the access. Somebody is terminated, remove the access. If somebody changes role and their privileges change, you can remove the old application and give the new application. So we have the SIM gateway, which is core capability in the product. We also have the full observability, so you can see what the system did. So you can look at what the system did. We have a full change data capture that I'll pick up some events, interesting events here to show. So we capture the full information of the employee, what data we got from HR, how did we create the employee, what changed, what privileges and groups were added, removed, and retained. And then you also have the capability to review, which means you do not have to run the system in autopilot. You can approve what should go change. So not that everything is going to be done automatically. You can choose that certain things I need to approve and look at it, what the system is going to do before I approve them to be written to the Active Directory or identity, any of the identity platform that we support. So you have the capability of approval and rejection. So that's kind of, a short view. I know I can get down into a lot of weeds, but a short view of what is possible and how we achieve what we just talked about in the presentation. And let me switch gear again. I know I'm trying to run fast, but trying to show you guys as much as I can. Go back to my slide deck here. So we did the quick demo, and as you saw the demo, this is the functional or the interaction view of how system works. So as a recap, we'll get the data from Workday over the API or extract. The workflow that you saw on the product is applied. Then we are able to write to Entra ID, Active Directory in a hybrid setup, or Google Workspace or Okta. We will create the identity and we will assign the privilege, which enables access provisioning, license management, as well as MFA and SSO. We have these 200 plus SIM connectors, which will do the provisioning. And then we integrate with service desk to allow the ITSM workflows as well as the source and asset allocation. Now, if you do all of these, then what is the benefit? Why should you do it? So what we have found, I mean, we have around 170 plus customers. What we have found is most customers are able to reduce their HR and most importantly, IT workload, because most of the work that our product automates is the IT workload. So customers are able to reduce their IT and HR workload by up to 90% with 60% cost avoidance. And this is significant cost avoidance because we are talking about highly skilled resources. And this also does not take into account other benefits which are not quantifiable. Benefits like superior first at work experience, benefit like risk avoidance, benefit like protection from the security vulnerabilities or security exposure. So this is the benefit that you achieve if you automate joiner, mover, and lever to identity. Our product, as you saw, is purely no code, no scripting, no coding required, and we have exceptional customer service. This is third party data that you can find on G2. This is what our customers say about it: the quality of support, their ease of doing business, the customer success. We have been consistently rated as a high performer by G2 in this regard, as well as Gartner Peer Insight. And then we have customers across multiple industries that we sell to, because automating joiner, mover, and levers to identity is not an industry specific problem. Certain industry have certain nuances or certain things are more important to them. There are certain industries where attrition is high. There are certain industries which are very sensitive about the access control. Like we have a lot of customers, or most of our customers are in healthcare, manufacturing, and retail, where there's a high attrition, as well as in case of healthcare, there's a strong focus on security, compliance, and need to know basis access. So depending upon the industry, different benefits are more appealing to one, but we generally are pretty horizontal have customers across the industry. So with that, I've taken a lot of time, but I hope I was able to illustrate why you should automate JML to identity, what happens if you don't, what are the benefit if you do, and how you can do it with hire to retire. With that, I'll pass it on to Ashita to take it from here.
Thank you, Pram. Thank you, Pram, for sharing your expertise with us. We do have a lot of questions in our Q&A section, so let's take a few minutes to address them.
Okay.
Do you want to?
Do you want to read them out to me?
Yeah, I can read them out to you. So the first one we have is, can I customize access provisioning rules for employees based on their department or location?
Absolutely. I think that's a core feature. And if you saw in my demo when I went over the group assignment as well, as OU assignment. OU, I believe, is more about organization unit, but when you get to those groups like Microsoft 365 group, distribution, this security enabled group, they have the capability to choose one, more, or any number of employee attribute to derive the membership into the group, as well as when somebody is going to have a change of role and one moves from, say, sales to marketing, and some of the attribute will change accordingly. Example, department, then the rules are adaptable. Adaptable means they will adapt and change the privileges, which means some privilege may be removed, some may be added, some access may be granted. And also what I showed in the observe page, we have that capability where we'll be able to report to it. We'll be able to say, okay, somebody's profile changed or attributes changed, and therefore certain privileges were added, removed, or retained.
Thank you. The next one we have is, what are the options if we don't have any SIM connectors available for our applications?
So that's a good question, because unfortunately we don't have thousands of connectors, which is a good marketing pitch. But what we have done is we have kept our product very focused. As you saw, it's a very niche focused product, and we have the ability to add such SIM connectors at a short notice. So and this we do all the time when we get our customers, even in the beginning, even in the sales process, we ask them, what are the SIM connectors you may be needing? And if we don't have it, we are able to add them to the product within 6 months. And that is absolutely at no charge, because our strategy has been to put the SIM connectors for our customer base, for the industries that we are serving, because each industry has certain set of applications they use. So instead of going after millions of SaaS applications which are available in the world, we are trying to take that focused approach of adding the SIM connectors to the product.
Okay. Um, We also have one user asking a question, how much does this product cost?
It's cheap. It's like not having a latte today for the user. So it's a pretty it's $5 per employee per month, as you might see on the website. But then there are discounts on the term that you sign up for. So if you sign up for 2 years or 3 years, 2 years has a sweetest discount. So there's discount associated with your term, as well as there's a discount associated with number of your employees. But all said and done, the total cost that you see is going to have a significant cost saving for your alternative that you have today. At the same time, the cost is very straightforward, honest, and predictable. As you saw, the code is product is no code. There's no scripting. There's no coding. We don't charge for anything. So only thing you will pay is a subscription, which is based on your term and number of employees. And there's a one-time quick start pro or onboarding service where our customer success service team will work with you, get you onboarded on our product within 6 to 10 weeks, and that same team switches into the 24/7 support. So and the 24 by 7 support is also included in the subscription cost. So you don't have any support cost, you don't have any professional services coding needed or scripting needed, and you just pay two fees, subscription fee as well as quick start fee. And I would be surprised if you don't have a cost avoidance or return on investment.
Let's move to the next one. So we can, I think the time permits us to take just two more.
Okay.
So one is, what's one piece of advice you have for teams trying to implement JML automation?
I think the biggest advice I'll have is work with HR team, get them as partners in the client. Because a lot of time it also happens that the employee data is not timely available in HR system. Sometimes I mean, IT needs time in advance so that they can do the onboarding, they can have the laptop created, resource granted, and it takes time to do these things, right? As well as sometimes they have to order resources for the employee to come in. So the expectation from HR is that they are able to create the profile in advance of employee's start date. If they cannot do it because there's certain situation in which they cannot do it, we also integrate with ATS system so that we can pull the employee data much before the employee can be put in the HR system. The second thing about having this good liaison between HR and IT is because the way JML is automated to identity, the biggest piece is making HR as a source of truth. So the data which is in the HR or payroll system is critical to the identity management. It is just like, garbage in and garbage out. If you have the good data available on the HR system, then you will have the good identity management processes. And once the two teams have a clear expectation set between them and the clear understanding, the process runs in a very zero touch automation fashion. The HR creates the employee's profile, HR updates the employee profile, HR terminates the employee timely, they update their attributes, which is role, department, title, etc. And then the workflow can take in this information and manage the identity. So that's gonna be a good advice because you want to make sure that the process is set right from the point one, which is the HR system.
We can have a last question, which is, how scalable is this automation for companies with a mix of hybrid and remote workforce?
So it's pretty scalable or pretty applicable, as I think that is a better word to use. The I could not show those much detail which we show in the demo, but the way product is built, it is like when there's a new hire. Let's say a new hire happens, right? Then HR has a service level agreement with IT that they will have the employee profile created 7 days in advance. So and then IT wants 7 days so that they can be ready for the employee, which means give them laptop access, so on. So we can create the employee profile 7 days in advance. We will activate, which is what most customers will do, will activate the employee account on the start date, say 9 a.m., because 9 a.m. is the starting time when the person show up at work. But then for the remote employees, you can ship them the laptop. You can choose how many days in advance of the start date you want to activate the account. So for example, you do it 3 days in advance. So let's say somebody starts on Monday, the account can be activated as early as Friday morning. The employee has weekend to open the laptop, let the Windows autopilot install whatever needs to be installed, log in and be ready so that he or she can join the call with the HR and the hiring manager Monday 9 a.m. for the onboarding. So we do support because it's remote employees are as much a reality as anything. I mean, most of them, a lot of organizations have a good percentage of employees as remote, and the system is built to manage it. At the same time, with the remote employees, it's also very important that the timely termination and other things happen because you may not be able to physically have the laptop and resources picked up when the employee walks out of the door. So you want to make sure that everything is turned off at the time in case of scheduled terminations or resignation, as well as sensitive or involuntary terminations.
Thank you, Brown, for sharing your knowledge with us today. To you guys, thank you for joining the webinar. Uh, Keep in touch for upcoming webinar sessions as we'll be having more of this. Until then, have a good rest of your day. See you next month.
Thank you very much. Thanks for patiently hearing us out. And if you see interest, we'll look forward to seeing you on one of these demo calls where we can definitely show you the product in detail. Thank you. Have a good weekend.